Mike, check 1 2 1 2. It's the Y2K Collector. Thank God Friday is here and the work week is almost done. Lord knows I need a break, and you probably do too if you've been going at it this Monday through through today. I want to talk about some things that you can do to prep for your weekend game hunting. And so we'll definitely talk a little bit about that. Like I said, it's May, so we're heavy into the game hunting season. But before we do that, I do want to go over some of the um, not contents, but rather comments that I have gotten in the last 24 hours on some of the videos that I put out yesterday. So we're going to go through some of those here now. So we'll start off with this one comes from Trepa Groupie. So Trepa Groupie responded to a video that I put out yesterday, pretty much saying the PlayStation 4 has lost its value. And Trepa Groupie says, with the way backwards compatibility works, I just don't think the PS4 and on will ever keep their value. Unless the PS6, for whatever reason, doesn't play half of the PS4 and PS5 library or something. CBGG 1585 responded to her comment and said, spot on. When I got the PS5 at launch, playing something like Until Dawn was like a completely different experience due to its bump in frame rate and resolution. Not to mention Cyberpunk at launch on a far superior machine, playing it at almost a flawless 60 frames per second. He goes on to say, if you have a PS5 or can get a PS5, the PS4 and PS4 the PS4 and PS4 Pro version is now redundant. And then Secret of Monkey Island 784 also responded to that comment and said, agree, but didn't this same scenario happen with the PS2 when the PS3 Fat was released? And surely it's also the same scenario with Xbox 360, Xbox One, Xbox Series X. There will always be the odd game that's not made backwards compatible, and what happens when it comes sorry, let me start that over. He says there will always be the odd game that's not made backwards compatible, and what happens when it comes the day that the PS4 store is switched off and we can only play data stored and copied over by the disk? Will the backwards compatible version work then as it's a digital download copy? So I think I understand what he's asking here. And honestly, I think this is, just and thank you, Trepper Groupie, CBGG 1585, and Secret of Monkey Island 784. Thank you for all your comments. I think this very conversation right here is part of the trouble that I have with consoles that from the PS3 and upward. We shouldn't have to worry so much about troubleshooting. It's the troubleshooting factor in using these systems that kills me. I hate having to troubleshoot a video game because at some point it becomes more work than fun. I really genuinely miss the days of plug and play gaming, and hopefully somehow, some way, game developers are able to get back to that in some way. I know we're so far beyond that now that thinking that we'll go back to that is a foregone conclusion. But I think that um, creating more consoles or creating more retro style consoles, I think is really going to be what people look for. And just because these consoles are getting more and more advanced, it doesn't mean that gaming companies can't come up with new consoles that only play sprite based games. And perhaps developers, instead of creating these like sprite based games that we are now playing on the Switch and PS4, perhaps these developers can make these games in a cartridge based format that plays the same way that old school consoles used to, but with just newer games. It's a thought. I don't know if anyone would ever do it, but I could think of a few games that have been released on the Switch. Games like Inmost, games like Flynn, Son of Crimson, games like Haiku, right? or even some of the newer games like Double Dragon Gaiden or Ninja Turtle Shredder's Revenge. Imagine if there was a console, a new console, that allowed you to play those games, but in a cartridge based format that didn't require any internet connection and was just straight plug and play. Would there be a market for that? I really do. I really think that there would be a market for that, but that could just be me. All right, we have some other comments here, and this one is a comment from Joel Deer. So I think it's Joel Y. Wait, Joel D. You're 6925. He says, I feel like another market spike based on the sale of those new factory sealed games is possible, and it's dependent on how much mainstream traction this story gains news wise. If non gaming outlets make a huge deal about it for a long amount of time, it can happen again, but I don't think it'll ever reach the extent of how it was during the pandemic. And he made this comment in response to a video that I made asking if another market bubble was on the way. Now, I remember, it's funny, I remember when Carl Jobst came out with that video about the retro gaming market bubble. And I think that was in the summer of 2021, or either 2021 or 2022. And I remember it vividly because I was in Waikiki. We were in Hawaii when that video came out, and I remember we were driving to this. I think we were driving to the aquarium. We were either driving to the aquarium or we were driving to the spot where you go to see like Pearl Harbor. So we were driving to like the Pearl Harbor area of Hawaii because we were going to go to a museum or an exhibit, or we were getting on a boat. I think that was where you got on a boat to actually go to Pearl Harbor. And I remember on the drive there to that I can't remember what it's called right now. The missus and the kiddo, they both fell asleep in the back. So I was like, you know what? I'm driving. Let me stay awake. Let me check out some YouTube. And I remember that was right around the time that Carl Jobst dropped that video. And I remember the sealed gaming market was crazy at that time. It was just crazy. That I remember that was a point where I want to say that was probably the height in terms of price inflation on video games. 2021, 2022, things were at an all-time high. And I remember there was a big controversy around WATA games and heritage auctions and market manipulation and price manipulation. And Carl Jobst did a really great job just talking about WATA and heritage auctions and just everything that was going on at that time. And I think a lot of, like this gentleman here is saying, I think a lot of that kind of, stemmed around all the mainstream attention that it was getting at the time. I remember waking up. I remember when we got back from Hawaii, and I remember waking up, and I think it was either Good Morning America or even like my local news station. They were talking about games that were selling for hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I don't know if we're going to see that type of craze again this summer. I haven't seen anything mainstream or any mainstream news on things like that. But if we do see any kind of news on things like that, then I think, it'll definitely have an impact. But I want to say thank you to the commenters for those comments. They definitely, you all add value. You all add value when you drop some of these comments. It definitely helps to kind of just spread some awareness and some knowledge. And I've really been toying around with the idea of maybe doing like a call-in show. I'm thinking about it, and maybe it's something that we'll do when we hit 4,000 or 5,000 subscribers. I think it would be cool because there's a lot of folks who don't have a YouTube platform and don't care to have a YouTube platform, but still have a lot of knowledge and information to share. So I think it'd be great to hear from the commenters. All right, so just switching gears and just talking about what's going to be happening this weekend. So this weekend, it's the first weekend of May. And this is probably when we'll, in my area anyway, where I'll probably start to see some of the first garage sales and things like that. So I just kind of wanted to talk about some things that that I might do, like if I do plan a day of retro game hunting, there's definitely some things you can do to prep in advance. So I'll just go ahead and kick it off. So the first thing that you can do is, in my neighborhood, usually when a family's getting ready to do a garage sale or a yard sale, they'll post, they'll put up like flyers, um, they'll put up stickers, they'll put up different things to notify you, because I live in a community with older folks who don't necessarily post things on Facebook Marketplace. They won't necessarily post things on like Craigslist or whatever, and they're very old school. So they'll buy a piece of cardboard paper, and they'll post it up and hope that you see it when you drive by. So one of the things you can do is just take a quick drive around your neighborhood and look for those postings, look for those signs announcing of any upcoming garage sales, because that's one way that you can start creating somewhat of an itinerary for the day and just start marking down your stops, and probably do it in a way where you can maximize the time and maximize the day. So that's one thing you could do. Just take a quick drive around your neighborhood the Friday before, or the day before you intend on doing any type of garage sale or yard sale hunting, and that'll kind of give you an idea of who's doing what. Another thing that you can do is you can also check your Facebook Marketplace, check Craigslist, check your online listings for yard sales. They actually have yard sale websites that let you know when a yard sale is happening. So that's another thing that you can do to try and see what's going on in the neighborhood. Or maybe of a neighborhood where probably there's more quality items. Everyone has a rich neighborhood, right? I never grew up in a rich neighborhood, but I know where the rich neighborhoods are. And a lot of times you want to hit those neighborhoods up because they usually have a lot of the good stuff. So definitely want to go ahead and keep an eye out for that. Then another thing that you can do is you can actually call your local retro game stores to see if they're actually having any sales, any buy two get ones, if they're looking for any specific games to trade in, to see if they're offering any special types of credits or promos on any of those items. So that's another thing you want to do, calling your retro game stores a day in advance. And you can also find out what type of inventory they have, right? Because you may have things that you want to trade. And if you're able to call the store and double check to see if they have anything that interests you, and you don't have to be specific. You could just say, hey, have you guys gotten in any new Sega Saturn games? Have you gotten in any new Super Nintendo games? And a lot of times, retro game stores, they'll be a lot more friendly than like a GameStop, and usually they're more willing to kind of share what they have and what they know. So that's another thing that you can do to see. And then lastly, just checking your local listings for your big box stores, like your Best Buys, your GameStops, your Walmarts, your Targets, seeing what types of sales they have online, seeing what deals they have in store. I know a lot of times GameStop, they'll offer you like $25 off when you spend a certain amount, but you have to pick it up in store. So checking that and just being aware of that, all these things will kind of give you a leg up and just kind of help you be more focused with your video game hunting. And so hopefully some of these tips or tips that you didn't think about, hopefully they help you this weekend. If they do, and if you do have success using these, let me know down in the comments. Let me know in future videos. We all want to have success. We all want to be as lucky as those YouTubers that we see finding those gems. And the only way that we can do it is by sharing best practices. It's the Y2K Collector. Hopefully you have a productive weekend, and I'll be back with you this afternoon. Take it easy.